In this video, we'll view detailed project analytics on single projects and prime contracts, or multiple projects and primes. From the project homepage, we will scroll down to the project menu, and under General Info, we can click Project Analytics to open the list of analytical reports. The category Project Financials is already selected, as is the project from which we opened this window. If the project has only one approved prime contract, it is also selected. We can also get to the same page by clicking Analytics in the left navigation. Two categories of analytics are available: Project Financials and Leads. We'll talk about Leads Analytics in an upcoming video. For each analytic report, we need to select at least one project. If the project has only one approved prime contract, it's selected for us. If it has more than one prime contract, we can select the contract to view, or if we leave it blank, the report will show all prime contracts. For this example, we'll select Prime Contract 001, which is fixed lump sum. The list of reports we see varies based on the type of the prime contract we select. We'll start by looking at a single project, and then we'll talk about multi-project reports. Before running a report, be sure to click Review Anticipated Costs and review field % complete to verify that the latest values have been entered. We covered these in more detail in other videos. Having these up to date is the means of calculating projected costs accurately. The Reports area has several tabs that let us target the type of report we need to see. We'll talk about the Overview tab in a moment, but let's start by looking at cost reports. Two groups of reports are available, and in the next video we'll cover summary dashboards. In this video, we will look at analytical reports. We can set the option for summarizing these reports by job cost code, division code, division and job cost code, or owner code. We'll leave some by job cost code selected. We have several broad groups of reports here. We can see committed costs and cost to date together on one report. Or we can view committed costs, cost to date, projected costs, and a unit price cost analysis. Let's start with the committed cost overview by transaction type. Notice the parameters area. We can select whether to show all cost codes, or only those for which the cost budget total differs from the committed total. We can also select whether to include pending transactions. By default, only approved transactions are included. In the last video, we talked about which transaction types are included in the committed cost calculation: purchase orders, bills not from purchase orders, subcontracts, subcontract change orders, employee miscellaneous expenses, and labor and equipment time cards, and anticipated costs. Make sure we've entered and approved all of these transaction types to date for the project, in order for the report to give us the most accurate picture possible of the project financial status. Any costs not covered by one of the other transactions should be captured in anticipated costs. The committed costs column shows the total for each cost code. We can compare that total to the cost budget, and we can see the difference between the two as a dollar amount or percentage of the budget. This report helps us flag potential cost overruns, or identify costs that might have been entered for an incorrect cost code. Notice that we have variations on this report that show bill rates instead of cost budget rates, and we can show these with or without taxes. Now we're going to scroll down and look at the projected cost at completion overview. This report shows three groups of transactions. The cost-to-date columns show approved transactions, bills, sub-invoices, miscellaneous expenses, and labor and equipment time cards. This reflects the actual costs we have already incurred on the project. Notice the filter bar. We can include or exclude remaining labor and equipment time cards, and we can select a budget variance option. The Open Commitments group shows purchase orders, subcontracts, and subcontractor change orders with open balances. These reflect the vendor commitments remaining for the project. The other projections group includes remaining labor equipment costs, and notice that it also includes anticipated costs. This is different from the committed cost overview by transaction type report we just looked at, where anticipated costs are grouped under committed costs. With projected costs, we need to include anticipated costs as part of the project total remaining. As anticipated costs are converted to actual costs, they'll fall into the appropriate column under cost to date, open commitments, or remaining labor and equipment. By the end of the project, the anticipated costs amount should be zero, with all amounts moved to actual transactions. We have a long list of analytical reports on the Cost tab, so take some time to review them and decide which we'll use most frequently. Click the star to the right of the report to add it to our favorites list. When we refresh the Analytics page, we see a new Favorites tab that we can use to keep all of the reports we'll run regularly. When we run these reports on a single project, we see details summarized by cost code. In the Selected Projects/Prime Contracts section, let's select Multi-Project and Primes to include more than one project. Notice that the list of reports changes to show only those available for multi-project reporting. The optional classification and status filters lets us limit the projects to show by classification types, project fields such as address or contact, and by contract type. Under Optional Date Filter, we can select a range of dates on which to filter transactions. If we don't select any dates, the reports use cost to date by default. Also by default, the reports will show only active projects, but we can also select inactive if we want to include them. The Resource Center in the upper right corner has an article with details about how these filters are applied. We can find it by going to Product Help and Training. Then under Reporting and Analytics, select Analytics, Project Financials, where we see a plethora of information. Back to our report, select View/Select Projects and Primes. From here we select the project and prime contracts we want to include. For our example, we will select all of our projects lines, and then click Filter in the bottom right corner. Let's view the Committed Cost Overview by Transaction Type report again, this time with multiple projects. Instead of showing cost code summaries, the report shows summaries at the project and prime contract level. If the project has more than one prime contract, each contract is shown separately. The columns are the same as we saw on this report earlier. Let's look at a couple of the other types of reports, and again, we'll cover summary dashboards in the next video. The reports we see on the Overview tab provide a useful overview of project financials that we might provide to our executive leadership team. The detailed summary report is a 2-page overview with bar charts and summary grids. The top grid shows the revenue overview of approved prime contracts and change orders. The cost overview grid shows budgets, commitments, and costs to date broken out by resource type. The profit analysis summarizes what leadership wants to see. How much will we make on this job? The Vendor tab has useful reports for seeing costs broken out by vendor. The vendor summary using PO Bill SCO and Sub-Invoice Totals report shows the list of all vendors for whom transactions have been created for the project. We'll see committed costs, costs to date, and approved commitments with open balances. We'll also see the retainage held. This report is helpful when preparing to close out the project because it lets us see the status of each vendor at a glance. The Labor tab has a project labor hour overview report, which uses the field % complete value to project the remaining number of hours and cost to complete. Note that we can include pending time cards in the parameters bar. If we've recently made changes to field % complete or to anticipated costs, we can click Force Data Refresh to verify that the report shows the latest numbers. As we can imagine, we need to run the report again to pull in the latest data. We'll return to Single Project Reports to view the next one. If project superintendents consistently enter the activity units, sometimes referred to as production units, into their daily logs, we can run the labor productivity using Daily Log Quantities Report. This shows a comparison of the job cost code quantity to the daily log quantities to the % complete daily and field quantities. Review this information to see if we need to bring any of these quantities into alignment. The remaining groups show comparisons of hourly budgets, cost budgets, and production rates. In this video, we learned how to view detailed project analytics on single projects and prime contracts or multiple projects and primes.